ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Smart Tank Revolution, where we always kick out at two. I am your solo host today, Mr. Donnie Wonderful, and you all know what time it is. Butterfly in the sky. Uh-huh. I can go twice. Indeed. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. All right, cut that. Yes, we are reading yet another article. This is an article read along where I narrate to you all in this beautiful baritone voice some of the articles that come across my email, timeline, news feed, wherever I get these from. And this one comes from Pro Wrestling Stories. I will leave the link in the description in case you want to read it without my constant interruptions and notations, verbal notations. But this one is called Ric Flair and Bret Hart, War of Words. Wow. I said, of course I'm going to save this and bookmark it. And of course I'm going to read this for our beautiful subscribers and supporters and hopefully some new ones. With that being said, please like the video and offer our I'm sorry, not offer, accept our offer to subscribe to the channel. We absolutely love doing this content, and we're definitely engaged in being more active in disseminating more videos. Go back and listen to the Raw rebuttal by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Joey Back in Business. Also, listen to his AEW Dynamite diatribe. I mean, listen, the that speaks for itself. I mean, he's spot on. So wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Joey Business. Um, Anything with Bret Hart, if you're new to the channel, I'm going to absorb like a sponge. Favorite wrestler, the greatest wrestler to ever lace a pair of boots. I told him that verbatim, and he graciously accepted it. I mean, what can you tell the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be about wrestling that he already doesn't know, he's not privy to? Um, Reason why I'm also reading this too is because I have a very high respect for Ric Flair. Ric Flair, let me see. So in basketball, uh, parallels, Ric Flair would be essentially the Bill Russell to me. If he was even still at, if he, but just being active. I mean, Ric Flair wrestled through countless decades, and he wrestled everybody. So if Ric Flair is saying it, it definitely has credence and merit. I was aware that at one point that these two great wrestlers were at odds, but now I know that they're friends. And Bret was at Ric Flair's last match that took place last year. There's tons of pictures with those two, just cheesing it up. It's all smiles and Hallmark cards. But there was a time where Bret was calling Rick overrated. Rick was saying that Bret didn't draw, and the author Matt Pender last year, January 10th, 2023, decided to write about it. And I'm going to read it. And of course, I will attempt to differentiate the article from my own personal thoughts and disagreements or agreements. And I'm pretty sure you guys will know. So let's get into it. The Reading Rainbow theme has already been played. Now, again, this comes from Pro Wrestling Stories titled Ric Flair and Bret Hart, A War of Words by Matt Pender. Shout out to you. Let's get into this now. Amen. All right. So, nowadays, Ric Flair and Bret Hart get along just fine. Pause. Thank God. The first sentence already cleared that up. All right. Resume. However, in the past, they were not the biggest fans of one another. Not by a long shot. Here, they each explain why the other is not the legend he's cracked up to be. Ooh, pause. All right, we're going back down memory lane. I was privy to this maybe about a decade ago. Okay, so let's see. Subtitle. Resume. Ric Flair on why Bret Hart is no wrestling legend. Ric Flair says, and I quote, I feel sorry for Bret Hart. He's a legend in his own mind. He lives in his own little world. He has the nerve to compare himself to me? Let's get realistic. If you put Bret Hart in your left hand and me in your right hand, compare the career. Who is Bret Hart? I wrestled everybody in the business for an hour each night. Harley Race, Dory Funk, Jack, and Jerry Briscoe. I've been around. I know who's been successful. I know why they haven't been successful, and I know who's good and who's not good at what they do for a living. My opinion can be held second to none. Pause. I agree with that. Resume. Oh, no, 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 no. Pause, pause, pause. Wait, wait, wait. Time out. I agree with the fact that Ric Flair says his opinion can be second to none. I'm not even going to get started into how I feel about what the remarks he made about Bret, but let's continue. All right, resume. I'm the only guy that's wrestled everybody from Bruiser Brody to The Rock. That's very true, as we all know. Resume. Bret Hart, Rick laughs. He came from a very strong family that was very well recognized and very highly thought of. But here are the facts. He never wrestled anybody except in the WWF. Pause. Ooh, damn it. He's actually right. He's actually right. Bret Hart's from Canada. But to his defense, Bret is from Canada. Calgary Stampede. You know, but I think yeah. If we're talking back in, I'm guessing this statement was made somewhere around. Let's be gracious and give it a let's say from 2007 to 2017. Anywhere it should fall anywhere in between that. I can definitely see that being um, a very compelling argument against him. I definitely can see that. I mean, it's also true. We're not talking about any of his matches in Calgary, even though he had some great matches with the Dynamite Kid. And also, to come to the defense of my boy, where do you think they got the ladder match from? Legit. Where do you think they got the ladder match from? All right, that WrestleMania 10 classic that everyone holds in high regard, including me, including me. Where do you think that idea came from? Hmm? Stampede Wrestling, Dynamite Kid versus Bret Hart. I don't know if they would wrestle an hour. You got to be fit, and I do remember Bret saying that Rick was very fit. But I'm saying, like these are like daggers. They're stabbing my heart. It's like, it's like, you know, you have two loving parents and they're arguing with each other. It's like, oh, terrible. All right, resume. Okay, this is Ric Flair again. Okay, never wrestled Brody, never wrestled Hanson, never was a big star in Japan, never went to St. Louis. When the WWF was hot, he was in the Hart Foundation. He didn't have to draw any money. He just rolled around on Hogan's coattails. Well, pause. Okay, so yes, in the 80s. I believe Bret Hart got to the WWF around 1984. That was a great year, by the way. And yes, for the 80s in the WWF, Hulk Hogan was drawing the money. We know this. Okay, resume. And when they made him the champion, he couldn't draw a dime, and they couldn't wait to get rid of him. When he came to WCW, he bombed. Does that make him a big star? I'd have to interject. Pause. Okay, listen. Who killed WCW? That covers that. And then they couldn't wait to get rid of him. I mean, the Montreal screw job has been covered like the Zapruder film. You guys all know that thing has been covered to the moon, and everyone has an opinion, and the truth is somewhere in there. And yeah, that line's kind of he takes it kind of personal, I think. Okay, so resume. It's Ric Flair again. In my world, he is a nobody. He is a pissant in the history of wrestling. Oh man, good lord. Ugh. All right, let's see. I expect that the next section is subtitled Bret Hart on why Ric Flair is only a legend in his own mind. Oh man. This kind of hurt my feelings. I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this. Yeah, this is raw, uncut, unfiltered, unedited. You get it all. We do this for the people, We do this for you. Donnie Wonderful and Joey Business. We champion the people, supporters, and we thank you all. Thank you for supporting us. All right, so again, resume. Bret Hart on why Ric Flair is only a legend in his own mind. You should have read it in their voice because I can actually do that. Right. Bret Hart says, Flair says in his autobiography that I believed my own press and convinced myself that I'm the best there is. When I boast about being the best there is, it is because of three reasons. The first and most important is that I never injured any wrestler in any way despite my physical style. Very true. Resume. This is something in which I take a lot of pride, and I don't know of anyone who worked the schedule on par with mine for as long as I did who can truthfully make that same claim. Mm. The second reason is that in the 14 years I was with the WWF, often wrestling 300 times per year, I missed but one match, and that was due to a canceled flight. Again, I don't think anyone who worked that schedule can truthfully make that claim. Everyone on the road worked hard, but I was proud to be counted among the handful of guys with an exceptionally dedicated work ethic. The third reason is that I never once refused to put over a fellow wrestler throughout my career, except at Survivor Series 1997, in parentheses, versus Shawn Michaels. Pause. One argument seems like it's aimed at its offender very personally. The other seems to, is my favorite thing here, substantiate his claims with facts, with objective facts. I'm not even done. But reasons one, two, and three, we can actually go back and say, yeah, 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 that's actually true. That's true. It's true. Check, check, check. Nothing subjective here. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right. Resume. Self-promotion was an intricate key to any wrestler making it in the business. Ric Flair convinced a legion of fans that he was the best in the business, and there's nothing wrong with that. He even convinced himself. But his peers, the guys who worked with him night after night, know better. He could I'm sorry, how could any fan know what kind of worker Ric Flair really is without actually working with him? I remember Rick and Bobby Heenan coming up to me in the dressing room in Nashville on May 6, 1989. I was in the Hart Foundation at the time, and Flair told me he was honored to shake my hand. I had never seen him work. Being on the WWF road schedule made it nearly impossible to catch any wrestling matches on TV because we were almost always working or traveling when wrestling was on. From what little I saw of the NWA, my impression was that their TV show was poorly produced and made the wrestlers come off as second rate. Damn. Despite that, I'd been led to believe, like everyone else, that Ric Flair was the best in the business. I always wondered if he was the best. I'm sorry. I always wondered if he was the best. Why wasn't he in the big league WWF? His popularity at the time was largely concentrated in the deep south. Hmm. Pause. Well, again, refer to my last interrupted tangent. Proceed. I appreciated his compliment, and I hoped I might have the chance to work with this legend someday. About a year later, Flair was the head booker at WCW. and he made me an offer to come work there for good money. I'm sorry, for money good enough that I had to seriously consider it. As it turned out, Flair was unable to back up his offer, and the deal fell through when he nervously reneged. I lost respect for him and his word and smartly chose to stay put in the WWF instead. Oh, so all right, so there's a backstory here. Okay, all right, all right, resume. Eventually, I'm sorry, let's start that over. Eventually, Flair showed up in the WWF with the WCW belt, and I was somewhat surprised when he shamelessly crapped all over the history of the territory that made him by not giving them their belt back. Pause. Okay. I understand why you did that, Ric Flair. From everything I heard from Jim Cornette and Jim Hurd and what he wanted you to do, I don't blame you for that. Just saying. All right. So, to this day, I don't know what would make him hurt his fellow wrestlers and their struggling company like that. But I admit I don't know all the facts on this. Good. See? Pause. That's that's how you clear up. That's how you clear up your statements. All right. Let's continue. Yeah, we're still on Bret too. Flair was trumpeted in the WWF with great fanfare, and at last, one night in New Haven, I was thrilled to defend the IC belt against this great legend in an unscheduled dark match that was taped for Coliseum video. I knew more about ring psychology and real wrestling at the ripe age of 9 than Ric Flair knew in his entire lifetime. Damn. Yet out of respect, I let him lead the match. Okay, well, all right. And yes, he can say that. Sorry, pause. Brett can say that, like, well, and that's also a subjective opinion. But I'm promising. No, I can't promise anything. But I bet there's some type of fact behind that. I love Ric Flair too, man. Ric Flair. Why these? Why did I decide to read this? I don't know. See what we do for the people. We do this for you. All right. Resume. Rick suggested a finish called I'm sorry. Rick suggested a finish that called for me to do a flying crossbody where he would subsequently catch me and stagger backward, with the two of us toppling over the top rope only to be counted out for the finish. It was a simple but risky move that I'd done countless times before with lesser wrestlers, but at the end of the match, when I dove into Flair, he stood too far from the ropes, mistimed it, and he simply didn't have the strength to catch me. So he fell down in an embarrassing heap. That's a botch. Oh, this thing still goes. Okay. Wow, Brett, damn. Okay. Rick suddenly came up with a new makeshift finish that, not surprisingly, benefited him and not me. It absolutely stunk, but these things sometimes tend to happen when two wrestlers work together for the very first time. Although the match had been taped and can still be seen today, I wasn't going to make any kind of big deal about it. Back in the dressing room, I was annoyed to hear Flair pointing out to everybody that somehow I had messed up the finish, implying that I was still a young up and comer. If you understand wrestling, you know that all I could do was dive into his arms and, and the rest was up to him. He proved to me right then that he was full of it and was no legend at all. Can you all believe that this thing keeps going? I'm starting to recollect. Maybe this was an excerpt from his book. I don't remember. Okay, but proceed. Damn, Brett. Rick was an old fox that took such liberties every time he thought he could get away with it. You'll find nary a wrestler that would describe me, Savage, or Foley as backstabbers or sneaky liberty takers. But with Flair, you better take a number. Whoa, okay. I remember, yeah, this was in the book, actually. Okay. Because I remember this part. I remember Flair worked with Randy Savage, who, like me, was led to believe the same crap about how great Flair was when they had a Saturday night's main event TV match in Hershey on September 1st, 1992. Flair somehow became WWF champion. Vince McMahon carefully constructed an elaborate storyline for this very important match. I was standing right next to Vince, watching the match live on a backstage monitor. When Vince blew his stack, as he watched Rick do absolutely nothing he told him to do. Rick was never able to do anything but his one routine match, which consists of cartoon high spots borrowed from Jackie Fargo and midget wrestlers, along with an assortment of tired old ripped off Buddy Rogers high spots. My dad always called Flair a routine man because he did the exact same routine every night and was forever stuck with it. An angry Vince met Flair as he came through the curtain, and he furiously ordered both Flair and an exasperated Randy to march right back out and redo the entire match the way he told them to do it. Even then, as I remember it, Flair was still unable to impress Vince. Personally, I would have been shamed with embarrassment to ever put the promotion. I'm sorry. I gotta read that back. It's so hard to take it. Good Lord. Okay, personally, I would have been shamed with embarrassment to ever put the promotion, myself, or my opponent through such a farce. I recall telling Randy that I thought Flair was 30 minutes of non-stop, psychology, and Randy shook his head and laughed along with me at how true it was. I can tell you firsthand that Ric Flair was no great worker at all. Good Lord, this thing is still going. Yes, he did hilarious interviews, but to my taste, I never thought a world champion was supposed to be hilariously amusing. Granted, Flair was entertaining to watch, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, much like Hogan, Flair's magnetism and charisma distracted from and offset his limited ability in the ring. The single greatest contribution that Flair ever gave to pro wrestling was the woo from his silly chops. First off, chops hurt. And in my opinion, they look like crap. Pause. I would never allow somebody to chop my chest like this. Looking at Brian Danielson get all those red warts, I'm not for that either. I'm not for that either. Rick, if we ever wrestled, you get one. I would be following your lead. So you might get about 7 or 8 of them, but I'm gonna hate every last one of them, except for the first one. The one I allow, and then the rest, man. In my mind, I'm gonna be stabbing you with a rusty fishing knife. Yeah, those chops hurt, man. The chops hurt. They, mm. I ain't gonna call them silly. They work, but damn, they hurt. Can you all believe this thing still grows? I mean, Brett's really going in here, and I understand. I understand that the author took a large portion of this from his book. But good Lord, this is just stacked. I mean, if Brett was defended, who do you got? Who you guys got? Members of the jury, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who you got so far? I'm not even done with this compelling case. It feels like I just hit the tip of the iceberg. All right, proceed. For Flair to demean Randy Savage and Mick Foley in his autobiography is outrageous, in my opinion. As someone who has worked with all three of them and everybody else from that era too, Ric Flair couldn't even lace up Randy and Mick's boots. They were both hard workers and exciting innovators who at least made every possible effort to put on some kind of different show from night to night. Neither one of them could call a great match anytime they wanted. So if so sorry. So what if Randy wanted to put in an even greater effort by designing a great match in excessive detail? That is a quality, not a flaw. And Flair is too lost in time to grasp. Hmm. Sure, Flair could call a match, the exact same one over and over, talking and telegraphing every move. If old time shooters like Ed Strangler Lewis or Frank Gotch were to look down from the heavens, I'm sure they'd be more impressed with Randy in mixed realism and psychology than Flair's phony chops and upside down flips into the corner, where amazingly he somehow landed right on his feet, only to jog to the next corner, where he climbed right up and even more amazingly took 10 or 15 seconds to maneuver his opponent's hands carefully into his chest so he could take a phony flip back into the ring. Damn. If done on rare occasions, I'm sorry, if done on rare occasions, such silly routines, because they are highly amusing and entertaining, often go undetected for how ridiculously phony they are. This pathetic routine was performed every time Flair went blank. Let me tell you, he went blank all the time. You know what? Listen, there's a lot more here, right? And I mean a lot more here. There's a lot more here. I'm just going to end it there because the description again is in the the description. I'm sorry. The link is in the description box. This was a lot. And also, they have a link to their match in Saskatoon in 1997, which was Bret Hart. This is where he won the WWF title for the first time. This marked the beginning of his first title run that ended in was it March of '93, whenever WrestleMania 9 was. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe April. Yeah, April 1993. So there's a bit of some classic material here that they offered, and I appreciate them for doing it. I know from one of Bret Hart's DVDs, I know that he dislocated his finger in this match, and he pops it back into place, and they show Kurt Hennig was um was managing Ric Flair that night, and he sees it, and you can see Kurt's face grimace when he watches Brett pop his finger back in place. A little grotesque. That should make it rated R right there. But man, after look, I'm glad they're friends. I am glad that they're friends. Listen, and if I could talk to you guys back in this era where you hated each other, I would tell you both. You both are legends. This is essentially that promo with The Rock and Triple H backstage at SmackDown. That damn, that was about 9 to 10 years ago. But yeah, honestly, both guys are legends. Brett had his compelling argument was exactly that, but it was written for us to read. I believe that Ric Flair's portion was just maybe taken from some interview excerpts. But you know what? They're friends now. Why can't we be friends? And if you ask them both, they'll both tell you that they are legends. I do remember, and I referenced it earlier. I believe that Bret Hart admitted that Ric Flair was very fit and he was proud to work with him, and I'm glad that they're friends. Damn it, that's how we got to leave it. Now I didn't get through the whole article. Maybe next time I'll probably scan it, but again, to be true to the moniker that this is unfiltered, unedited, and this is completely spontaneous, we run into surprises like this, where I clearly couldn't tell how long this article was, but in reading it, it keeps going and going and going and going. And why would I leave a link in the description if I'm going to read it all? Sometimes I do. Most times I do, but today I don't. You know. So hope you guys enjoy that. I believe I got through about 70% of it. The rest of the 30, again, is left here for you to indulge on your own. And yeah, we'll be back with more videos and more essentials and more article read alongs because they're all fun. Donnie Wonderful for Smart Tank Revolution signing out. Thank you for listening.